Hi, I'm Nate, and you're watching episode 1 of Beetles for Beginners. Firstly, I want to say that I'm not an expert. I'm a beginner. I'm a member of that growing population of second-generation Beetle owners. I'm one of those guys that inherited a bug, or bought one because his wife thought it would be cool. I'm from that group that didn't grow up with one of these cars on every street. But we are charged with the responsibility of learning how to care for these cars so they can keep on cruising. This video is intended to be part how-to and part entertainment. I'll resolve the problem, whatever it may be for this video, but I might not do it in the quote, proper way, and I may make mistakes along the way, some costly, some painful, some funny. We'll call it creative license. In the end, I'll have a nice catalog of project videos to look back on someday. So I hope you enjoy the video, and maybe learn a little something you didn't know already. Okay, so first we need to remove our hubcap, and if you have painted rims like I do, that makes that a little tricky. So all these hubcaps have these two little holes in it. I took a piece of wire, fairly heavy gauge, and just bent those hooks, and it kind of gives you a tool to pull those off without, nicking up your paint too bad. So that's step one. Okay, so on the driver's side, there's this little E-clip here, and that's holding on actually the end of your speedometer cable right here. And the passenger side won't have that, but the driver's side does. So first we need to remove that E-clip and be sure not to lose it. It is small, but very important. Okay, so we need to get this dust cover off to get inside here, and I think looking at it, it's going to be actually easier to leave the rim on, the wheel on, to have this little ring here. Looks like it'd be a good fulcrum point. I think, like you could use a big screwdriver. I'm going to use this little pry bar here and just kind of slowly work around it in a circle pattern to pry this off without damaging anything. And then there we go, so that's what's inside. Okay, I'm going to use an impact gun here with a 19mm socket. If you don't have an impact gun, you probably want to loosen these up while the car's still on the ground, because if you try now, the wheel's just going to turn on you. There's this hex screw holding this thing on. We have to loosen that first, and it looks like it's a 6mm, so everything's some sort of millimeter on a bug. We got a 6 here. I'm hoping it's not on there too tight, and I'm hoping that's the right size so that I don't strip anything out trying to take this off. Looks like it's coming out just fine, and I don't think you have to back that out all the way. Just need it to loosen up so we can turn that. Alright, now I have no idea what I'm going to find when I get in here. Like I said, I've worked on cars before in years past, but not really on Beetles. We've only had this for like a year and never really had any problems. So whatever's in here, it's going to be new to me too. Maybe need to loosen that up a little bit more. Looks like it's reversed threads here. That would have been good to know ahead of time. So, righty-loosey in this case. So that's good. You know what? Sometimes you don't know, especially when it's on spinning things like wheels or motor parts. Sometimes they'll do reverse threads so that the motion of the wheel doesn't actually correspond with loosening something. This is going to roll forward the majority of the time, and that could potentially cause this to loosen off. So they did reverse threads on this in this case, so that the forward motion would actually just serve to tighten the nut. So very important before you start cranking down on a what you think is a left loosen thread. always check. Maybe go the other way just a little bit to see if it gets looser. So you want to hang on to this. Super important. And there's probably some sort of, I don't know, maybe washer in there. You get a screwdriver and check that out. Alright, yeah. I just noticed this key slot here, so that kind of tipped me off that there's probably some sort of washer here, and that slot keeps it from spinning. And no, let's see what we can do. Yeah, looks like we got something else that's going to come out here with it. Gentle is the key here. We don't know what this is, and we don't want to just start wailing on it with a screwdriver, trying to pry it out of there. So we just take our time. It's the thing with Beetles. I mean, when working on cars in general, you just want to take your time. If you're in a hurry, like you know, it's no fun working on a car when it's an emergency situation. And definitely don't want to have that with Beetles, because the deeper you dig, any classic car I've found, the deeper you dig, you don't know what you're going to find. So we have the bearing, like an outside bearing. We'll have to check these in a little bit, see what kind of condition they're in. Definitely need repacked. Some serious, there's like hair in here somehow. You gotta watch out for that road hair. Never know where that's gonna build up. Okay, this should pull off now. I don't see what else could be holding it on there unless the shoes are all jammed up inside, and that would not be fun. Definitely notice some pinch points in the back when you're pulling on this. You could easily bruise your fingers there. So, slow and easy. We're actually doing pretty good. I've had times where wheel hubs and stuff are really stuck. So let's just be gentle here. Okay. There we got our hub. Looks like factory original. Oh, that's real nice. I don't know what that is rolling around in there. So, shoe drum design. Here's our cylinder. This is probably where the leak's coming from. I can't see definitely for sure, but you can tell like all this dripping down here. You know, this is the only place. This is where your brake line comes in. This is the only place it could be leaking, I think. But we'll have to do a little cleaning in here, a little inspection, and then we'll figure it out. Either way, if you have a leak like this in here, you're going to need new shoes, because you get that brake fluid on there, and if you drove it for any amount of time, that's just going to saturate those shoes, and it's like basically oiling up your brakes to grab real well. You know, not going to work. So we're going to do a little cleaning in here. This probably hasn't seen the light of day for a long time. And then we'll come back. Here we are a little closer on the brake cylinder, and I think I found the leak. Once I got a flashlight in here and started looking, it looks like it's coming right out of this seal here, I bet. And I'm going to have my lovely assistant pump the brakes, and we'll see if that's where it's coming out at. See a little moisture build up. Yeah, it looks like it's starting to collect, and it'll drip pretty soon. So that's the leak. Either way, It's not supposed to do that. Can you do that one more time? Just pump the brakes so you can see how the cylinder works. And it looks like we're only getting half the action over here, which would explain why the wheel was pulling to the right when we hit the brakes. Basically, the passenger side was doing double the work of the driver's side, and thus the wheel would pull. Alright, so we now know our problem. That's half the battle, right? So now we gotta fix it, and that can be harder. So we gotta get these shoes off, and to do that looks like we gotta take these springs off. That's pretty standard for any drum system. We need a pair of needle nose pliers, and I don't think it makes a difference which one we start with here. These things will hold on the shoe until we get the rest off, but getting a grip on these springs can be easier said than done, especially when they're covered in grease. Sometimes you have to call for backup and get the vice grips involved. So that's that. You know, it's something that's always good when you're taking things apart. Videoing it's always good too, because sometimes you don't remember everything, but you know, I'm sure there's only really one way. You can look at the shape of these shoes. They only go on in one way, but you know, you do things like reference, there was 2 holes, you know, the spring was on the bottom hole. Remembering that sort of thing will help you when you go to reassemble with new parts or put your old parts back on. In my situation, it's probably going to be a bunch of new parts. You definitely need these. This piston probably going to need to be replaced or rebuilt. I'm not sure. It may come off. It looks like there's a bolt here from the back holding that on, so it could be as easy as unbolting that and just putting a new one on. I'd rather do that than have to rebuild whatever's in here. Alright, so let's keep going with our disassembly here. And there's a pin on the back you might want to hold with your fingers. There you go. Pull that out through the back. Make sure you didn't do too much damage. See how that seats in there, and that's just pretty simple. So instead of wasting our efforts trying to pry all these springs off while they were still under tension, you might as well just focus on one, you know, and then just take the shoe off, and don't make it harder on yourself than you have to. So looking at this spring that we took off, this short side goes to the shoe, and the long side goes in here on this stamped steel mounting point. So a good thing to note when you go to put it back together. Yeah, you can see these would not be good as brakes anymore. They're basically infused with oil now. Oil and grease and road grime, and you know, there's no point even trying putting those back on. It would just not work. Alright, so I really feel compelled to clean all of this. And you know, while you're in there, you might as well. Well, that doesn't look good. I imagine that's supposed to be attached to the body. That's another problem. I'll work on that later. So let's stay focused here on the brakes. Yeah, I'm going to clean up in here, and I probably won't bore you with the video of that. Looks like these are adjusters for the shoes. If everything was good with that, when you put it, before you took it apart, I would not mess with them. And might even want to mark or visually determine kind of where things were, along this angle, and then try to avoid it when you're cleaning. Get in here with the scrub brush and end up messing up those adjustments. It looks like you could get in here from behind with a screwdriver or something and adjust those if you needed from the outside. This one's actually kind of loose. This one's pretty set. So, okay, when we come back, I should have this kind of cleaned up, and then we'll determine after that what to do with this. Whether we can just a quick fix, or if that's something that's going to need to be new. But you can see this is definitely where the problem is. It's leaking right out of there, and looks like it needs replaced anyway. Okay, so here I am on the back side of the brake cylinder, and I'm just cleaning up back here a little bit to see if I can tell if this whole thing, this area here, this is your brake line coming in, your bleed valve, if this whole thing would pull out with the brake cylinder, because you got this bolt here that holds it in, and it seems like if you take that off, this whole thing should just come out, and then you could just replace that, run your brake line back in, and be good to go. At least that's my hope. But with cars, you never know. Okay, so we're going to take off the cylinder now, and I think first I'm going to take this bolt off, because once I unscrew this, all the brake fluid is going to want to start pouring out. So you kind of want to have your new part ready to go as fast as you can to replace it, so you hopefully don't have to bleed your whole brake system. You don't ever want the reservoir to get air in it, because then you pretty much got to start over. But this little plug came with my new one, I think just to protect the threads, but I'm hoping maybe it'll fit over the end of this brake line and save me a little trouble. First things first, we got to hope this comes out clean. That's a little heavier duty, it probably will. The brake line I'm a little worried about. It's pretty corroded, and these are pretty soft. So hopefully we can get that off without too much trouble. So we'll see. This bolt is a 13 millimeter. So we'll go ahead and gently work on that. Okay, so that's coming out pretty easy, and I'm going to stop a little bit so that maybe I have a little help and resistance against this one. This is an 11 millimeter, and it looks like that whole cylinder turned, which is kind of not good. I see this whole brake line turning, not pivoting like it should. Okay, that could be a problem. This should spin freely on that brake line. The whole brake line should not be turning like that. It's corroded together right in there. It makes me think I should replace that too, which I wasn't counting on. But this is what happens. Problem 1 can lead to problem 2, which can lead to problem 3. And you just gotta take them one at a time. And this video might get longer than I thought it would from the beginning. Okay, this is one of those situations where you're in an emergency mode, and that's not fun for working on cars. You really don't want to have to do that. This is a good knuckle breaker situation too, where probably just going to end up getting hurt. Sort of like that. Okay, we got ourselves a good old-fashioned good one here. Where I left off was the brake line basically twisting off. I was trying to get it off of the flex hose here and then plug it. The thing I thought would plug it wasn't quite the right size, but what turned out to be a good thing is my new cylinder here on the bleeder valve. There was a nice rubber cap, and it happened to be pretty much just the right size to fill that hole there and stop the bleeding a little bit for the most part. What stinks is I don't have any new parts to replace that today, so hopefully this doesn't just bleed out all over the place, but there's a good chance by the time I do get the parts it will. But them's the brakes. Maybe that's what I'll call this episode. Them's the brakes. Anyway, we can move on and get the cylinder off, put the new one back on, and just forget about the slow bleed over here for now. Okay, so these cylinders can be kind of corroded in here. That's pretty typical. A lot of road spray down here going on, so just kind of knock on it for a little bit. Back and forth and see if we can get it just kind of come out. There we go. So there's that. There's your piston inside. Whoop, we got a bleeder. Whoa, oh. I'm gonna guess on this other side that was completely shot. That's where our leak was. Right in there. Anytime, if you've ever done a brake job before, you really go through the paper towels. And if you've ever worked with brake fluid, you know that stuff is a real pain. We got our new cylinder. We're going to put on right in place of the old one. Find the bolt in the back, if I can find it. Okay. So that's the cylinder replacement. That's about all I can do for tonight until I get new brake lines. And then start putting all this back together. So I'll see you then. I decided I'm gonna clean out these hubs a little bit. Just, there's a little bit of rust. I'm gonna check for anything that might be rolling, any kind of debris that might be rolling around inside. Just get that cleaned out real nice and smooth. I'm gonna use a little 220, some steel wool maybe to start, just to see if that gets it. And then just get this back to good working condition before I put it back on. Alright, I got my new brake shoes. I put these on either side, so we'll just kind of go step by step in reverse from the way we took them off. Alright, next I think we had these short clips, and I think the long end went into this metal piece, and then the short end went out here. this one's a little tighter. Whew. Alright, that should be it for changing, reinstalling the brakes. Now, because I had that massive leak, I've still got to bleed the brakes and do all that before I can really check to make sure this is going to work. There's no leaks. So I'm probably not going to put the wheel back on until I do that. But that is a brake cylinder replacement for beginners.